I'd like to call the meeting to order. The Leavenworth Board of County Commissioners. I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge.
Thanks to America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to start with a moment of silence. Roll call, Commissioner Cos, Commissioner Culberson, and Commissioner Smith are all present. I'd like to open up the public comment portion of our meeting. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please come forward and state your name. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment portion of our meeting. Administrative business.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, good morning. David Van Paris. Commissioners, the county had received a complaint of possible surfacing of septic water. The county has been in contact with the property owner. It's currently being investigated as to whether this might be gray water rather than black water. We'll give additional report and be ready to take action if needed at your next meeting.
Okay. And is this something, does this go to a codes court, or does this just come to us as a Board of Health?
In order to proceed with a codes court case, I would need an order from the board of this commission sitting as the Board of Health in order to proceed.
Okay. All right. Anything else under administrative business?
Nothing at this time.
Nothing at this time? Okay. Our consent agenda. Has commissioners had a chance to look at the bills, minutes, anything on the consent agenda? Any questions?
Not for me.
We'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I make a motion we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Voting?
Aye.
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 All right. Are we ready for planning and zoning at this time?
Hi, guys.
Hi. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. This is case number DEV 18101, an application for the renewal for a special use permit for Wilcott Woodworks. The applicant is applying to renew their special use permit for a cabinet shop. There are no changes to this business. This business has obtained a special use permit in Leavenworth County since 2008 and renewed this permit in 2013. There have been no complaints regarding this business. The Planning Commission voted 8-0 to approve this renewal for 10 years, since this is the second renewal with no complaints. The applicant is present to answer any questions you may have, as are we.
This does require a public hearing, so we will open up the public hearing portion of this. Anyone here wishing to speak for or against the Wilcott Woodworks?
My name is Mike Wilcott. I'm the property owner. We've been out there for several years. We have no complaints. I'd ask you to grant at least the 10 years, maybe even consider longer if possible, because if you left it open-ended, any complaints, we could set that for hearing. Or if we want to expand, we could set that for hearing. Or if we retire, we could return the permit. So at least give the 10 years, maybe consider even longer if possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll admit, I drive by there every day, and I didn't even know this was there. So. Anyone else wishing to speak? Then we will close the public hearing portion of this and return to regular session. Anyone have any questions on this?
Have you talked about offering an extended year permit?
Yes, actually, it's up to the commission. We have done 15 years, if that's something that...
We did one other cabinet shop 15 years, I believe. And they'd already been in business 15 years and no complaints. And like you said, if there is a violation of any of the conditions, that's a whole different deal.
Mm-hmm. And this one's been there since, what year?
2008.
08.
I have no problem with 15 years.
I don't either. 'Cause
That's
like I
what I'd
said,
recommend.
we would just have to redo the resolution. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But we could go ahead and pass it today, and then you just bring us a new resolution?
Yes.
Okay.
You ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we approve it, but extend it to a 15-year permit.
You'll have to use the case number.
The
and all that.
resolution number.
Resolution, I'm sorry. 2019-3.
I make a motion we approve resolution 2019-3, extend it to a 15-year.
Okay.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Mr. Wilcott.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Do we have anybody here for the noxious weed?
I'll take care of that.
Okay.
Annually, we are required to adopt a program for annual noxious weed eradication and provide a progress report to the state. We're just asking the board to consider approving that, and then our Alan out at the noxious weed department will make sure everything's sent in.
It's pretty much same as it was before.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioners have any questions on this?
It's pretty much what we've always done, isn't it?
Yes.
It's nothing out of the ordinary, no changes.
It's just required by law to do it. I'll entertain a motion to accept the noxious weed management plan.
Motion to accept the noxious weed management plan?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the noxious weed management plan? Seeing none, voting?
Aye.
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 All right. So now, we're ready for PRP projects and any of the other road projects for discussion.
This is, the next item is just a follow-up to the discussion that we've had on this. This is wrapping up the PRP program that was terminated in June. The remaining projects that were listed on there have been addressed either via getting all the easements required or they failed to reach the required signatures that they needed. So this is basically just the final action closing out that program, moving the ones that have the signatures over to dust abatement and canceling the one that was out there that never got the required signatures.
Okay. And we've got some estimates and our funds listed on this.
The
Funds are available.
the next item that we will be discussing is then the dust abatement and PRP projects for 2018, and I'll give you an update on where some of the other ones are too.
So
For this one, this will just be basically closing out the PRP program.
Okay. So you're going to need a motion to remove the roads that did not receive
This would be
the
removing,
necessary easement donation?
correct, this would be removing 187th Street from the PRP list. That's the motion we're looking for today. The other three projects are already moved over to the dust abatement program.
And are in the group.
Yes.
I like to call them phases. I don't like them called groups, but that's just me.
The challenge we had with the phases is they're not necessarily done in that numerical
one,
order.
phase two.
They're done in that group because they're all in the same area of the county, but they're not necessarily done in the order of phase 1 or 1, 2, or 3. So that's why they changed it to a group instead of a phase.
Okay.
And we're still at 9 of the 11 easements that were received, correct?
Yeah, that one missed the deadline. They were not able to get the additional signatures, so it's just removing this one.
But did they have the 100% early on?
Yes.
That the intent to donate?
I believe they would have had to get to this point.
To get to this point,
but
okay.
They were never able to get the final 2 signatures to donate.
Okay.
I
Do you
just
know
think,
any details on that?
I just want to mention, I think it's important to point out to the public that even though we're doing away with the PRP project, that doesn't mean, like a lot of them are considering that to mean there's no hope for those roads to get hard surfaced. They're actually just sliding over into different options like the dust abatement program.
Well, the ones that got the signatures, we've already moved over per the board direction and prioritized them to the top of the list as per board direction. Any roads going forward where people, where they don't meet our minimal requirements, they don't have enough traffic or they don't have other issues, so they're not high on our priority list. If people want to move those up, they have the option of participating in the dust abatement program. And I think there's been some confusion about the dust abatement program because in the past, everybody assumed that meant to the chemical application. There are really a couple of different opportunities within there. One is the chemical application, which is funded by the property owner, and they can have it put down in front of their property. It's an annual program. We just put a list out there for the contractor who does it, and they contact them directly. The other opportunity is a dust patch. So if you live in the county and you have an area in front of your home or property that you would like to have a chip seal surface put down on, but it doesn't connect to another paved surface, you can do a dust patch. We've had several people take advantage of those. With those, you are responsible for the ongoing maintenance. They require a reapplication every certain number of years. The last one is the dust abatement program that we're referring to on the next agenda item, and that is roads that connect to existing paved roads. The property owner can come in, and multiple property owners could, or one property owner, depending on how they wanted to handle it. And as long as we're improving enough surface to connect to the next the paved surface, and I believe it's a half-mile minimum on that. If they meet those criteria, then they can pay the county $13.50 per lineal foot. We will put that on their property taxes for a 5-year period at no interest, and then they can get that paved. We have had, I believe, 1 or 2 people sign up for that too so far, and we've also had in the past other people who their roads didn't meet the minimum requirements, and they just came in and paid actually more than their property. They paid to have a chip seal surface, which would be called a dust patch, done. So those options are out there. It just requires that instead of the county pay 100% of the cost, the citizen pay a portion of that cost. And $13.50 is a really, really attractive rate if they go look at it. We do all the prep work. We bring in extra rock for it. And depending upon traffic counts, we'll determine whether it's chip seal or asphalt, but at the minimum, they would get an improved road. We have some deadlines that they have to meet in order for us to be able to schedule it in a year. But if we can't get it in the current year, it would be the next year on our priority list.
And especially carried over a 5-year period. 5
years, no interest. And again, that's some of the reason where the timing comes into effect. But if you come in April of this year, you're going to be next year's projects. So you got to get in before the deadline.
And then that last option, if it's connected to a hard surface road, the county would maintain it from then on.
We take over.
We maintain it going forward after that. So that's really the replacement of the old PRP program.
And so this 187th Street that we're talking about is just slid into those options instead of just completely dropped.
Those folks could come in, and they'd have to agree to pay the $13.50 per lineal foot. It would be split out amongst all the property owners who were interested in participating.
Question. I would like to see the county on the website. We need to update our website, by the way. But I would like to see the county answer these types of questions in writing in a very clear manner for the public so that they can look at these options and issues and what the parameters are and the costs associated? Because I think that would help with a lot of the confusion that has been created, especially since we eliminated the PRP program. I think that an explanation of that would be in order for people to be able to understand what happened. I think there's confusion right now as to we have groups 1, 2, and 3 who we're approving, and then there's 4 and 5, and that does not mean that they're not included. That it means that the report has not been received from the county at this point from Schlegel, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And I've met with staff, and we're in the process. They're preparing a schedule that shows where each of these are at in the process, if they're in review, if they've been scheduled for construction, if they're completed review and are just waiting for board approval. We're preparing that list. It'll be done, if not this week, next week.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We should put something on the front page of the county webpage to lay these things out.
And there are a few links on the county webpage that talk about ongoing projects, but they don't, I agree, they probably don't do a good job of communicating where they're at if they're not under construction. And that's what a lot of people wonder. So we will, in the next few weeks, we'll have that completed.
Thank you.
Yeah, because it's getting time to bid these things.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the 13 at last year's price.
That was last year's price, but it hadn't been updated this year, so
Well,
I don't imagine it's gonna
Petroleum
change.
products should be down,
Yeah.
so it should.
Well, but that's not the only thing
Right,
that's
I mean,
calculated in. It's
Right, it's rock.
It's a percentage of the cost of if we went out and did the improvement.
We're still subsidizing it,
We are subsidizing it significantly.
but we're also taking something hard, gravel to hard surface, and
Absolutely.
that's moving forward.
I think it's a very good option for the people who are out there that want to improve the roads and don't want to wait until their road moves up on the priority list. This basically is a way for them to move up on the top.
Okay. All right. Any more questions on the removing projects from the PRP list?
Nope.
You'll need a motion on that, Mr. Lawfrey.
Yes, we would prefer that.
I make a motion that way. Is this on the removing the
187.
187? Make a motion to remove 187 from the PRP project.
Second.
Have a motion and a second on removing 187th. Is there any more discussion on that?
Is there any other roads on the PRP
This
that's
is the last
hanging
one.
out
This will
there? Okay.
officially close that program out.
Okay.
There
I
will
was
be
going to say
nothing.
we should add them all at the same time. But.
Yeah, this is it.
Yep.
I just want to reiterate one thing, is that I think that staff needs to really follow up with the individuals who are affected by this removal, because I think that they felt, or they feel that,
I'm actually meeting with 2 of them this afternoon.
okay, I just think that we need to make sure that,
Guess you qualify as staff.
okay, or Commissioner Culberson. But just that we meet with these individuals and discuss what happened with them and try to look at the options that are available to them moving forward, because I think they really feel like the ball was dropped, and that we need to kind of reassure them that they're not hanging out there.
What their options are now.
Right.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Voting?
Aye.
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 Okay. Now moving to the advertising for PRP groups.
As listed on your handout today, several of the groups that we've submitted for deficiency review have been completed by the contractor and sent back. They're ready to proceed with drafting the bid documents to place these out for bid. We're just asking that the board approve today that we move on to the next step on those. As we just discussed, there are other groups that are under being reviewed right now. They just aren't completed yet, but they should be completed soon. We wanted to proceed with what we had ready and not wait on those, just so that the board had an opportunity to review these and take action so we can get moving on them. And as Commissioner Smith said, that time of year where we need to get the bids out when we can. On these projects, you have engineers' estimated cost. I've reviewed these with the county clerk, and we've identified funding either in current sales tax collections, budgetary funds, which you have identified here, and then cash carryover is listed on here. But one of the other things that we will be asking the board to do, there was a significant cash carryover even after this $400,000 was budgeted, that we want to reallocate for these projects. That way we have adequate funding to move forward. So if the board decides to move forward with what's on here today, in the future, the clerk will be bringing in a budget amendment for your consideration to reallocate cash carryover towards roads this year. And I think that.
And 219th is recommended to be done by Public Works.
Yes. I think there's another one that we're reviewing right now, too.
174th, the Public Works has already replaced the large crossroad culverts between Evans and State. It'd be a real easy project for Public Works to do also.
Typically, they're trying to do about 3.5 miles with staff, and then the balance go to the contractor. I can check on the 174th for you. I think that, if that might be one worth consideration.
Because it'd be nice to have a road down there close to 182nd to see how it should be done.
You're referring to the stretch between Metro and Kansas?
No, no, I'm referring to between State and Evans. Is it even on here? Or is that done? Is the deficiency done on that?
That's Evans to 2440.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in the PRP group.
Right, right.
Yeah.
The mile south of State.
Green on that map.
Hmm?
It's green
Right.
on that little map.
Oh, I was just going by the money's at.
Yeah, yeah.
It don't matter where it's at on the money, or on the map, it's
Right.
where the money is.
Right.
But, and they could, Public Works should look at it, because I do know we've replaced all the large crossroad culverts and, you know, a lot of the driveway culverts even.
I will.
It'd be an easy one to do. Without getting off track too much, the 182nd, 179th, the road that we had a contractor do that are falling apart, something terrible.
I just this morning I sent an update to the board on that. Obviously, we've identified that last summer even that it had some issues with the finished product. It wasn't in an acceptable form. We're trying to work with that contractor to explore what their options are, but it's not been an accepted product. And we do have a bond on that, a performance bond on that. So if we have to, we can go there. But I think we'll be able to work it out with the vendor. Right now, you know, the challenge is that this time of year you can't really do a lot construction-wise. There's not an opportunity to go out and re-chip seal it. And if we, as a county, go and do any work on it, then that might impact our warranty on it as a finished product as well. So we're meeting with the vendor. We're trying to address as much as we can now, but it will be one of our top priorities coming into the construction season to get that addressed, both of those areas addressed and fixed. And if we can't work it out with the vendor, which I'm pretty confident we can, but if we can't, then we will go the other route and we'll have it done appropriately, and we will I'll leave it to the county councilor, but we'll look at what their warranty bond states.
Well, I'm just afraid after being below zero today and then 60 degrees this weekend, it's really going to fall apart.
Yeah, it's going to accelerate. I mean, I think you can acknowledge that where it's already started to push through and rut.
We'll just have to fix it with signage, I guess.
Well,
travel at your own risk.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to. It may be that we just have to come in and put rock in those places to address some of it.
Oh, that'll make everybody
travel.
real happy on that road. We had a hard surface road, and now we're rocking it again.
Obviously, we can't go out and asphalt it or chip seal it right now. So we just have to do what we can do. It's unfortunate that we're at that point right now, but it will be on our priority list to get done as soon as the weather allows.
Okay. They haven't indicated they're not going to cover it, right?
No.
Okay.
We haven't had any indication. There's some other things that I think they can go out right now and address, like some of the erosion that's happening out there. I think they can go do that even though it's, cold out. They can still go out and address those things. We're going to talk to them about that. But the road surface itself, it's more of a, you just patch it until we can get to the point where we can address it the way it needs to be.
Okay. So if we approve this, Public Works should start on 2/19 pretty quick, cleaning ditches if the weather gets, getting the road ready.
They'll have it on their schedule. The Road and Bridge Superintendent, Mr. Greer, he will develop a calendar for that, and they'll get started on it as soon as they can fit it within.
We got materials we're gonna have to get ordered too. We're gonna have pipes. We're gonna have to put out a bid for that. So.
Yeah, they as soon as this is approved, they'll start. Like you said, even though it's not construction season, we still need to do prep work. So
there's a lot of prep work can be done.
And we'll get started on that. Just as part of this too, to discuss the other items that are on there. The ones that aren't on this list are still being done. They'll be completed. They'll come to the board. Depending upon what those costs are, we'll evaluate where we are with funding to see what we can do this year. As you are aware, Eisenhower Road, the design work is getting close to being completed on that. Probably utilities are being relocated right now. We hope to have those done probably by the end of April. Just a guess, depending, again, weather is going to make a big difference there.
They were working today.
As soon as the utilities are relocated, then we'll ask to go to bid on that. It takes at least 30 days for the bid. And then probably looking at May to June bid letting, I'm just guessing, or bid opening, I'm guessing. And there's some work that has to be done before they can start the rest of the project that they can do without the full mobilization. So we think, because we've discussed that timing. Either way, when that project gets ready to be awarded, we will be issuing debt to do that project. We do not have cash on hand for a $10 million project.
Do we have to have the money in place before we go to bid, though?
You will have to make a commitment to issue the necessary funding for that. So
it take about 90 days to get the funding?
We can do it faster than that. It won't be, for this phase, we probably won't issue bonds. We'll do a temporary note. There's still a process. It still takes some time. But as soon as we get notification that the utilities are relocated, I will contact our financial advisor. We'll prepare the documents for your consideration. But when we do that, we can include I'm not going to call them phases, the other groups that we haven't submitted yet. We can include those in that funding. Just so it'll be the board's discretion. Obviously that's 5-6 months from now when we issue those notes. But I wanted you to know that would be, to do them this year, that would be the way we would have to do it.
So to be clear, as far as the county is concerned, Eisenhower project is on schedule.
It is on our schedule. It is on schedule. Nothing's delaying it.
I wouldn't say it's always has been, but it has for a while.
I think we just received a progress update and a bill yesterday on it, so it's getting close. The only thing that's going to hold it up for bidding will be the utility relocation. We won't go out for bid until the utilities are all relocated. So they're right now, end of March, first part of April is when they're scheduled to be relocated. But again, with the winter, you never know. So if it goes to the end of April,
quick for utility relocation, but they are working.
Well, I think
my
understanding is in most of the project area there wasn't a lot of new right-of-way, so a lot of utilities don't have to be moved across most of the project. There's just certain areas. So, but what's been communicated back to us is they believe they will meet the March to April time frame. So as soon as that's done, we will be back in front of the board. We'll be asking for the authority to issue debt to proceed with that project, and then also go out for bids.
Is it running about 2.5% right now?
Temporary notes will be a little different because they're short term. We might actually get an even better rate than that.
Really?
But I don't expect it to be more than 3%. And The temporary note process is just a little bit different than issuing bonds, but that allows us the flexibility, so if the project comes in over or below, we can then amend what we go out for actual bond issuance.
I think all of our projects have been coming in under estimates.
So far.
Commissioners have any questions on this schedule?
No.
Or groups?
Nope.
Or phases?
It's going to be a year for building roads.
That's right. And whoever gets the new 5th district can take all the credit for it.
You ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
Make a motion that we approve the advertising for bid Group 1
Second?
for construction 2019.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Just to make it clear, 219's not going out for bid. County crews will be building it, and they'll start on that, hopefully, just as soon as the weather. So you guys should see the first completed road.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any further discussion?
Nope.
Voting?
Aye.
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 Okay. Are we ready for presentations from department heads and elected officials?
Megan, you're first. Yes.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Megan. How are you today?
Doing well. So I am Megan Waters. I am the Director of Community Corrections. Community Corrections is both adult and juvenile individuals that have been placed on supervision from the courts. Our agency is monitored by an advisory board. That advisory board is consistent of many individuals in different areas within profession and in the community. For both of the advisory boards, we have population that have to meet ethnical and gender expectations, as well as educational and professional experiences. Our agency is funded by the state through grants, and those grants are usually submitted about the 1st of May every year. Those grants are composed of both a comprehensive plan of what the goals for the agency are within that year, as well as the budgetary and financial expectations and responsibilities that the county does monitor those funds and expectations once the allotment and the awarded funds are completed from the state of Kansas. For the adult community corrections, this past previous year, which our fiscal year runs July 1 to June 30, so we're right in the middle of a normal year. But within the last year, our awarded letter for the adult side was around $230,000. That is to use to manage, supervise, and staff our agency. We also applied for what's called a behavioral health grant. Within that behavioral health grant, we allotted funds to cover some salaries for staff to be able to perform in-house trainings within our office to our staff or to our offenders. Those are usually under a cognitive behavioral therapy approach, which would include thinking for a change, substance abuse program, which is the acronym is SAP. And then we also have moral recognition therapy, which is called MRT. So we are in the process of setting a lot of those groups up, or we have had groups in the past that have been funded under that behavioral health grant. We also pay for services within the therapy side that we are not certified to be able to do, such as mental health therapy and substance abuse therapy. We pay for co-pays if offenders cannot pay for those services on their own. We also pay for assessments. We also pay for sex offender assessments and polygraph tests if offenders are not able to pay for them on their own under that behavioral health grant. On the juvenile side, I am new to that information, so what I've researched so far is that the juvenile side is consolidated under the 1st Judicial District out of Atchison. So we are the host county for those funds and within that program, but we work with Atchison closely on providing services and funding for those programs throughout Atchison. We just received the allotment letter for this year. For the graduated sanctions portion of the grant, we will hopefully be receiving $547,000. Those funds will be utilized to staff the agency as well as set up programmings within the agency through also, much like on the adult side, the behavioral health grant. We will also hopefully receive a grant portion of about $40,000, which is used for preventions. Those prevention funds are used to collaborate efforts with the Guidance Center as well as some of the local schools and the Youth Achievement Center as they offer programs for the juveniles within this community as well. We also have another grant funded that is through the Guidance Center called Project Change. That program is utilized to ultimately filter the juvenile staff from the court hearings to contacts within the Guidance Center to set up assessments such as anger management, substance abuse, and mental health. Those contacts are made right outside of the courtroom so that it kind of segues the whole process a little faster for individuals that are placed under supervision with the juvenile side. That is also utilized funds from the juvenile court system, also with court services. So it's not just within our agency, but the grant is offered throughout our district. Within our agency as a whole, we utilize resources in the community such as the homeless shelter, the domiciliary through the VA programs, the Guidance Center, the Workforce Development Center, the Youth Achievement Center, the Alliance Against Family Violence. We also utilize Catholic social services and charities. We also utilize programs such as CASA and the Child Advocacy Center. So we utilize a bunch of the programs throughout this community as well. Some of our goals for the year are, again, my agency, we really like to do what's called lunch and learns. Those lunch and learns are meetings that we set up with agencies throughout the community or even outside of our community to be able to utilize and share and collaborate information with. And we actually just set up one today to utilize with Green Feather Electronic Monitoring. The company that we had normally used in the past for electronic monitoring was Midwest Justice, and they are no longer in business. So my staff have contacted Green Feather Monitoring, and we'll set up to have a lunch and learn with them. And we will also be inviting other probation departments within the area to utilize into that lunch and learn as well. We also do a lot of collaborative and networking efforts with the Grossman Center, the Federal Probation and Parole Office, the Lansing Parole Office, the schools within the district, the jail. We have a monthly meeting with the Sheriff's Department. We meet with the police departments regularly. We have meetings with the courts, both in the municipalities and as well as district court. We work close in hand with the county attorney's office. Like I said, the Youth Achievement Center and Department of Corrections and many other agencies within the state, both on the probation agency side as well as other agencies through substance abuse and home placement for children as well. So, any questions?
Have any questions, Megan? About $600,000 in grants, I think is what you said.
For the juvenile portion,
state.
yes. Those are state funds.
No federal money is available for any of this?
There possibly is federal money, but that was the allotment letter we received from the state.
Okay.
So that is the hopeful number that we will receive on the juvenile side for the state.
All right.
To consolidate or to collaborate with both Atchison and Leavenworth for those funds under the 1st Judicial District.
And you quoted several acronyms with the moral recognition
Yep.
therapy, MRT?
MRT, mm-hmm.
Okay, now who does that program?
We will within our agency.
You have somebody?
We are actually both the juvenile and adults are certified to facilitate those programs within our agency.
So this is nothing that's done through, you said you work with the Catholic Social Services?
It is not done with Catholic Social Services. I do know the program is actually out of a company out of the Cincinnati area, and they have offered this the ability to come to communities to facilitate these trainings. I know the state of Kansas under the Department of Corrections is really kind of adopting it because the federal program uses it to monitor and supervise their offenders. So we were actually trained by federal probation and parole officers out of Kansas City,
Okay,
Kansas.
so this is not like a faith-based organization?
No, it is not.
Okay, all right.
No.
And then that's good to work with the Guidance Center.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you feel about funding, additional funding at the state level this year? Does it look positive?
Actually, from the reports that I've actually received from one of our lobbyists for a committee that I participate with, it does look like the state is going to be not looking at additional funding this year. I think that while we have the interim secretary, which is Roger Warholz, he's going to be looking at possible additional funding for staff within the correctional facilities and not so much with the staff in the field. But again, this was just a report or an article that was printed at the end of last week. So I can't tell you how to predict what that's going to look like at this point. But I do know we received the allotment letter for the juvenile side. I think normally on the adult side we have it by today or tomorrow. And so you will be receiving a copy of that as well so we can kind of know how to plan on the adult side as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? All right, thank you, Megan.
Thank you, Megan.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning again.
My name is Jeff Joseph. I'm the Planning and Zoning Director for the county. I don't know if you received a report that I gave you. It's basically two documents. The first document is kind of an overall duties for a department, and the second document goes into detail for all the processes and protocols.
Appreciate it.
Basically, the Planning and Zoning Department, we deal with all the building permits within the county. Any structure over 100 square feet requires a building permit, so they go through our office to get the necessary permits. And then we also deal with the septic systems in the county. We also offer soils class for all the installers and all the other professionals in different counties, and we do that every fall and summer. Every spring and fall. We last time we had like 40 people attend the class, and from 7 counties, so that was very well received. We also deal with entrance permits. We work with the Public Works Department to issue all the entrance permits for the county. And signage permits. Anybody who needs a sign, they need a permit from us. The county is limited in commercial zoning, so we offer a special use permit for all the businesses. If somebody wants to open a business from their home, they need a special use permit, so they come through our office and get that done. It's usually, it takes like 3 months to get that. It goes through the Planning Commission, and then it comes to the board for final approval. And then we also have temporary special use permits. Those are for like fireworks stands or uses that are temporary in nature. It's an easier way to get that done, so they don't have to wait the 3-month period for that. Our office is also in charge of the floodplain administration for the county. We have floodplain regulations, and we have a floodplain manager, and I'm the floodplain administrator for the county. So we issue all the floodplain related permits, and we do have a lot of floodplain in the county because of a lot of creeks and the river. So we also consult with all the surveyors and developers in the county. If they want to subdivide their property, they come to our office first and meet with us, and we give them all the advice and everything. We also do code enforcement. We have one code enforcement officer on staff. I mean, with 470 square miles of area, it's challenging, but we try to do our best in that area. Recently, the Planning and Zoning Department was combined with GIS Department, so we're also responsible for all the mapping and addressing for the county as well. And then special projects that we are working on, County Road 1, that was approved by the Planning Commission. We have 2 options, and that'll be coming before you in the near future for final approval. And then we are also working on a master plan for the whole county. We interviewed and selected a consultant, and we'll be bringing that before you for final approval as well. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions, Mr. Joseph?
Jeff, I don't remember the acronym, but there was a FEMA county cooperative project going on where we're going to work with FEMA or their contractor to, what was ultimately going to save taxpayers money.
Correct.
On flood insurance. Is that still on schedule?
Yes, community rating system. We are actually Crystal started working on that project. So with all these other projects, that was on hold for a little bit. So, but we'll start that project real soon.
Okay.
And that'll save the taxpayers like 5% to 10% on their insurance.
So are you talking about people that were previously not in the floodplain, and when they redid the floodplain, all of a sudden their house is now in the floodplain? There's going to be a program to get some cheaper insurance?
No, this is actually, there are several categories that we have to meet.
Oh.
The county has to do this. So since we have GIS, that's one of the things that it's a scoring criteria. So if we meet the scoring criteria, then we get the reduction in the insurance. So it was done like a couple of years ago, so it'll take probably like 2 more years to get that done.
So it'll be redone in 2 years?
Well, the floodplain, it won't actually be redone. But
Okay.
It's just the areas will change, so they
FEMA.
don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
FEMA's-
But when FEMA does the floodplain, I mean,
Yeah, that was revised
there were some
like a couple of
houses
years
that weren't in
ago.
the floodplain prior to this
Correct.
last one, and they're now in the floodplain,
Yeah.
correct?
Correct.
Yeah. This program is offering a discount if the county has certain resources available. FEMA will qualify the county to offer its residents a discount on their flood
Okay.
insurance.
And yeah, we meet a lot of criteria, but the only thing that I'm working on to make sure everything is okay is the audit. The state will do an audit on all the floodplain permits and everything, so we just need to make that.
Yeah, from the last LiDAR project, the flood
Mhm.
map's pretty much set in concrete now. Unless there was any dirt work done, it's not going to change again.
It's not going to change much at all.
No, it won't change again.
All right, and then commercial buildings can be built in the floodplain?
No, sir, no structure.
No structure in the
no
floodplain?
structure.
In the floodway. Yeah, now there's 3 actual different categories. There's used to be 2, 100 year and a 500 year.
Right.
Now there's 3. There's floodway,
Yeah,
and then
which
the
is
100
the
year
80.
and the 500 year. And now the
Okay.
new floodway, you can't build anything in it.
Right.
In the floodway?
In the floodway.
Okay. And then is that marked clearly on our floodplain maps?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any more questions, Mr. Joseph? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning,
Miller,
Commissioners.
how are you today?
Good.
Ambulances all start this morning?
What's that?
Ambulances all start this morning, as cold
They
as it is?
did. They did. My name is Jamie Miller. I'm the EMS and Health Department Director. As you're aware, by last week on the contract, I am contractual to the Health Department Officer position, and I am the full-time EMS Director. I am the only employee that oversees both of those departments and the only employee that is in both of those departments. So I'll start with the Health Department. We're located out on Eisenhower Road. We're in the northern half of that building out there. We employ 17 employees and 1 part-time employee. That includes WIC. We have to have a medical oversight. So our medical director currently is Kathleen McBratney, who is also the oversight for the EMS department. by having her as the medical director of both and myself being over both, it makes it very convenient, obviously, if we have any clinical decisions that need to be made or protocols and such. So the services that we provide out at the health department are grant supported as well through the KDHE state and federal. And a lot of times individuals aren't aware of all the services that are provided out at the health department. So I'm just going to kind of go through a list of those. If you have any in-depth questions of those, we can go through it. But some of the primary is immunizations. We are pretty heavily into immunizations, especially during summertime. I get very busy out at the health department, if you will, with immunizations for all the children that need required immunizations for school. We also provide travel immunizations. Anyone that's going out of the U.S. and traveling to a location that requires specific travel immunizations. Even private physicians and clinical providers in the area refer individuals to us just because of cost of immunizations and having to have certain immunizations available. So we are the provider to predominantly the travel immunizations that are needed. We investigate all the communicable disease required by state statute. So even if you are at a hospital or in another area and you reside within Leavenworth County, if that meets the criteria by the regulation and state for communicable disease, we have to do some investigation for that. We're the primary source for that and work with the state in regards to all the communicable disease. We have family planning programs. We have maternity, pregnancy programs, infant programs, well child programs, STD testing and treatment, physicals for well child, laboratory testing. We are the provider for HIV testing and counseling. We have to also, by state statute, the health officer is required to mandate that all schools, non-collegiate level, but all public schools and private schools, that they must be inspected for a health and wellness every year. So every fall, I have to, myself and or one of my clinical staff has to go out and actually do an inspection. Each school takes about a half a day to a day to actually go through and make sure it meets all the criteria. We do child care surveying, so all the child daycares that are within Leavenworth County have to be inspected on a yearly basis. We do the WIC program, which is Women, Infant, Children. We also have breastfeeding peer counseling available. We have teen pregnancy case management. We do a lot of referrals for behavioral health to the guidance center and out to other, as we are in the public health arena, we're more on the wellness side and the prevention side. So we're not a sick clinic. We do have people that show up to the health department that need those services, and we refer out to a lot of sick clinics and things of that nature. And we also have the public health emergency preparedness, and again, I'm pretty involved with that on the side of, that was the H1N1 and some of those pandemics. So any pandemic readiness, influenzas or anthrax or any of those biological or chemical type things, that is all also part of the public health emergency preparedness side of the health department. On the average, we see about 16,000 to 17,000 clients out at the health department for different services. Now, again, a lot of those services may be someone that's being counted in WIC, but then also we identify that they may have other services that are needed, and then they're into other programs. So again, some of those numbers are doubling just because of how the programs have to be counted and such. But again, it's about 16,000 to 17,000 clients per year. We operate on, for this year, for 2019, we're about $1.3 million. Revenue collection from grants is going to be about $720,000. So that's about 60% operating budget comes from grant supported. 10% would come from user fees. So individuals actually come in, there's still some charges and things based on income guidelines. And then about 30% comes from local match. So how that funding comes down from those aid to local grants that we apply for is a percentage has to still come from local tax dollars to be able to match to still receive that 60% grant funding. The only program that is 100% funded as of right now is the WIC program. all other programs still have some sort of matching component. And we try to minimize that amount of money down and still run and be able to run all of these programs. There's some pretty significant guidelines to all of those programs that we have to follow. We have to report on a quarterly basis. Some we have to report on a monthly basis back. So it's a pretty complex programs that we have to run on a yearly basis. And again, our funding comes from state budgets. So we have state funding that July 1 through June, and then we also have the October through September for federal, and try to meet that into the county's budget allocation for budget authority. So it's a pretty fun process to keep up with. In 2019, two of the bigger projects that I'm working on even currently will be the replacement of both of our vehicles out at the health department. Both vehicles out there are a 2005 and a 2006, and they're ready to be replaced. We are in desperate need of getting those vehicles replaced. There is depreciation money and equipment reserve money, so I will be coming back in front of the board for those. Those are projects that were already scheduled for 2019, so that's nothing to be surprised on. And I'm also working on for both departments, health and EMS, is an encryption email software program, because a lot more protective health information is being sent by email and it has to be encrypted. So we're trying to get a solution. I'm working with Larry on that as well, and I visited with Mark a little bit about that last year. So that's something that I'll be working on this year to get for the department. So any questions on the health department side?
Do you, like if somebody comes in to planning and zoning for a special use permit for a daycare, do they contact you? Do you have to do anything for that?
For daycares, they are licensed through the state, so it is a process. There's if someone wants to open up their own daycare, even in their home, there's a large process that has to happen. They have to have so many classes. They have to be inspected before a daycare can even open. The surveyors have certain trainings that they have to go over with, and then they have to have a license from the state before they can even open. So yes, anyone that goes to planning and zoning and says, I want to do this as a local business, we're involved with them already because of the license that has to come through the state's office as well as our office.
Okay. Now, say, does a doctor's office or a hospital, do they contact you, say, if there's a large outbreak of measles? You know, that seems to be the big thing in the news now. Do they contact you, and then you do what you got to do to notify and all that? Correct.
All clinicians and all doctors, nurses, nursing homes, anyone that is involved with the potential for a communicable disease, there's a reporting process that they're aware of through KDHE as well, which is the epidemiology side. We're notified. If they don't notify us directly, then it's notified into KDHE, and KDHE then reaches out to us, and we're available. There's 3 of us within the health department that are 24/7. So I've been notified at Sunday at 10 o'clock on a hey, this needs to be looked into immediately, and then we start that process. So hospitals, yes, they'll contact us. Doctors' offices, yes. Prisons, all sorts of things. We have on a daily basis cases that come in that we have to look into, identify, and do our side of the epidemiology.
Okay. And then whether or not they expand Medicaid or not, does that affect your department at all?
How payments are made and what can be paid and who's eligible and all those type of things can affect, obviously, how our programs are and who's eligible and who's not. Some of that will our eligibility comes in, are they insured, not insured, what's their income base per program. So it's really going to depend on what programs, what they're coming in for, whether they have insurance or not. If they expand, it's just going to really put more individuals into the potential of having insurance to be able to pay for certain. So that kind of goes into that user fee scenario, because we do also do some third-party billing as required to Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Aetna, those type of insurance companies for immunizations and some of the well-child physicals and such.
Okay. Any questions, Jamie, on the health department side? All right, we'll move on.
The EMS department, my administration is also in the health department building at 500 Eisenhower. We're on the south side of that building. That is where my 4 administrators reside. We then operate 4 ambulance stations. The headquarters is right out in front of that on Hughes Road. That's where the shift captain remains. And then we have 3 satellite stations, 16th and Metropolitan, the Tonganoxie station, which is the old annex. And then the Fairmont Township Fire Department is our Station 4. We cohabitate there under a contract to have a 4th ambulance. We employ 58 employees and 4 billing staff. We operate 3 shifts, 24-hour increments, running the Berkeley schedule. That's 12 technicians assigned with a shift captain and a lieutenant for each shift. The minimum staffing per day currently is 5 ambulances and 1 shift captain or lieutenant in a par car. We typically have both the captain and lieutenant, then we have the par car also in Tonganoxie and a shift captain north. That's a oversight then for southern ambulances as well as northern ambulances. Again, medical director oversight is Kathleen McBratney for our protocols and clinical decisions. Services that we provide obviously is ambulance service. However, there's different types of ambulance service. 911 is our sole purpose that we're around. However, because we are considered somewhat in the rural setting outside of Kansas City Metro, and a lot of the hospital services are not at either of our hospitals out here, we do the interfacility transfers. So if you're brought in to a local hospital and further care or more in-depth advanced care needs to happen, then we come in and we pick you up and we take you on then into the city, into a hospital that has already been pre-designated from St. John's, Cushing, or the VA. We do standbys and also public service. In 2018, we ran about 12,500 calls. Of those 12,500 calls, about 10.5 actually had the potential for a patient. So again, in the day and age of cell phones, we get called all the time to potential car wrecks or vehicles in the ditch or things seen, someone, meter readers laying on the ground. They think it's a patient that's laying on the ground, and we get there and it's a meter reader down in a hole or monitoring something. And those are calls that end up not having a patient. So those, again, that's where call volume, I like to manage what's call volume, meaning a truck is actually having to respond or go somewhere, but what's actual call volume that has the potential for a patient. And then how many of those are we actually transporting? And we transported in 2018 8,775 patients. With that, that's an operating budget scheduled for 2019 of $3,611,000. Revenue that's published to take in is $3,195,000, but in 2018 we were scheduled to take in $3 million. We took in 3.2, almost $3.3 million. So again, our user fee is what subsidizes a majority and predominantly our operations costs for the EMS department. Some of the big projects for 2019, the biggest one that we are going to be addressing the board in the very, very, very near future is the replacement of our gurneys. The cots that we currently have are completely manual cots, and in this day and age, manual cots are very antiquated. There's what's called power cots, and that is what we have established for 2019. We placed funding for lease purchase into the 2019 budget, and I'll be working with Mark to bring that back in front of the board to get that piece of equipment onto the trucks. It's going to reduce back injuries. It's going to reduce, there's a lot to that I will be presenting in the near future in regards to our gurney replacement. So I'm hoping to have something back probably in the next 2 weeks to start that conversation for that.
About how much is a power cot?
I'm sorry?
About how much is the power cot cost?
That will probably be in the neighborhood of about $400,000 project. But I'm looking to lease purchase it over a 5 years, so it would be about $100,000 payment per year.
And you probably didn't depreciate out manual cots.
We do, but it's a lot less than a power cot and a power load system. But the money, the lease purchase payment is in 2019 for the starting of that project. That was already placed for the 2019 budget. Again, I'll also be working into encryption email software for the EMS department as well. One of the other items that we'll be looking into is we'll be scheduling for the 2020 budget preparing process, ambulance chassis. The current van cutaway chassis that we use for our ambulances is no longer going to be manufactured in the diesel engine, which makes it a unique opportunity for us to have to find a new chassis that will meet our requirements for the boxes that we use. We're either going to have to switch over to a gas, unleaded gas motor and chassis, or switch over to a truck-style chassis. So we're looking into that. KCK and MEDAC from Johnson County already switched over. They went the truck route. The problem with that is you add about $20,000 per chassis just to go to that route. So we're looking at all of our options so we have that for the 2020 budget thought process and make sure that we have enough funding available to go forward because, again, running more calls, running more transfers, doing more, we're putting more mileage on these trucks. And just in January, last couple of weeks, we had to put a whole nother transmission in a truck because we're wearing them out. We're well over 200,000 miles on some of our oldest ambulances. And when we get over about 200,000 miles, we see our maintenance costs go through the roof. So many years ago, we were on a process that every 4 years, that ambulance was switched out. It kept our maintenance costs down. We held warranties longer. And just because of budgetary and the cost of ambulances, it's really about, we're holding them almost 7 to 8 years. And it's starting to show the ramifications and it's not cost effective. So that process and plan is, I'm going to start bringing that back to get a better solution to not have ambulances hanging out 7 or 8 years. We're also looking into some medical supply inventory control programs just to get a better, trying to maybe get into electronic tracking of medical supplies and better control that so we can potentially save some money. The other item is we sponsor EMTs onto paramedic school. And again, we have 2 that will be graduating in May of this year, and I have 3 others that are in first year. That has become a very good retention tool as well as recruitment tool. We have a lot of EMTs that come, and one of the questions out is, well, can I be sponsored to paramedic school? So we now have a considerable amount of employees that have been sponsored that are still on my roster. And again, we just last week, we hired our 2 last paramedics that we are now full staff. So with that, and these 2 graduating, we will be paramedic, if you will, heavy on a shift. So that's the first time in a long time that I can say that. We've always been chasing. So again, I think with adjusting paramedic pay to kind of the Kansas City area and getting up with that, as well as sponsoring some of our own and putting them onto some contracts to retain these employees, it's worked. So that program is something that I'm going to continue in my budget as well as just in my normal operations per year to try to continue some of that training. I think it's a well-invested program, and it's money well spent in the long run for training. It's training our own. So the last is we're finishing up, hopefully, the interior of Station 2's remodel, the actual living quarters. They're just working on the bathrooms now. All the walls have been painted, things of that nature. So the new cabinets are in on the living side. The new bay is in. It's operational. It's a lot of the exterior work is what's going to happen in the spring. They can't do the rock work and facade work when it's cold. But we have floor drains and things of that nature. So that'll be finishing up hopefully this summer.
Any questions, Mr. Miller?
Just a quick one about what's the current process for dispatching ambulances on Fort Leavenworth right now?
For us to go on to Fort Leavenworth?
Yeah, what's the...
If it is an emergent, we have an escort. So
Okay.
if we're running emergent, we get to, they pull a cone, we go through on the other side, and we go right on into, the administration has passes. We have, year to year, we get a pass. So if I have to go up there and do any sort of business, I have a visitor's pass and such. It's not a problem.
Okay, but as far as the ambulance, you still have an MP
Yeah, it's
escort?
not a problem.
Okay.
With all them call numbers, are you where you need to add another ambulance? Or are you close, or?
We'll be looking at, that is the goal of mine, and again, it's getting the paramedic numbers up, and once we get the paramedic numbers up, then I'll be looking at probably subsidizing positions back with some additional EMTs that will be able to put a 6th ambulance. So that is something that I'm looking at for, and again, it's funding is going to be the biggest thing, but we have to grow with it. As the numbers keep continuing to grow, and the amount of calls that no longer go to local hospitals, we're going into the city to specific hospitals because of specialty care. You're pulling ambulances out of our response times for a potential hour to an hour and a half every time you go into the city. So the need is there, but we're having to look at funding and what that's going to look like and what that's going to cost and where do you put them. And again, then it's buying more ambulances and equipment and so on and so forth. So
Will Fairmount Township give us a adequate warning if they need to expand their fire department and we need to find you permanent housing?
We have a great working relationship with them. And the last time I met with their board last fall, I think is when it was, and there is no indication for them to, quite frankly, they enjoy us there. If anything were to change, there's going to be, I think, ample amount of time for us all to work. It's advantageous for us to be there as well, because when we also come down, we do training there. Their people get the training as well. So we'll have ample amount of time. Okay. I don't think they're going to come to us and say,
Because I'd hate to see you operate now the Orscheln's parking lot over there. You know.
No, I think we're in good shape for right now.
Because you're never going to leave Baser. I mean, it's growing, and that's what I'm worried about.
No,
Fire department's going to have to
were
expand, and then they won't have room for you.
If they were to expand and said we can no longer be there, I would still be in front of the board saying that we need to find somewhere else in Baser, because that has proven itself as an efficient place to have an ambulance.
Right. Okay. Any more questions, Mr. Miller? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Linda. How are you today?
I'm Linda Lobb. I'm the Director of the Council on Aging, and I want to thank you for allowing us to have this time to explain our programs to you, because I know we have 2 new commissioners. Our agency is dedicated to providing services to individuals 50 and older. Some programs are for 50 and older, some are 60 and older, and some are strictly for low income. The mission of our agency is to provide services to enable seniors to remain in their own home or apartment for as long as possible. It is a great benefit to the county as a whole to have individuals remain in their home, because they continue to pay taxes, they obtain services within the community, and shop for goods, and so the county benefits when we enable them to remain in their home or apartment. We're probably best known for our Meals on Wheels program. And in America, every week, 5 million meals are delivered throughout the country. In Leavenworth County this past year, we delivered 14,370 meals. We have 2 nutrition programs. One is a congregate meal program with 4 dining centers, and then we have a homebound meal program. Our funding for these programs is through the Older Americans Act, USDA funds, meal levy, and donations, and we do I will say we do very good on our donations, so we're very proud of that. The homebound meal program receives some state funds, where the congregate meal program does not. Both programs are not income-based. You can be of any income and participate. Because we receive federal funding, we are not allowed to charge a fee per meal, so we ask for a donation of $2 per meal. Volunteers deliver our Meals on Wheels in the city at Leavenworth, Lansing, and then we have staff that deliver out into the county. Those that deliver in our rural areas drive approximately 100 miles each day. We have a registered dietitian who develops the menus so that they meet the ADA requirements for dietary intakes. Meals are prepared by Terry Booker, which is a local caterer here in the community, and he does a wonderful job. One of our goals for 2019 was to open a dining center in the city of Linwood. They're rehabbing a community center building, and so sometime within the spring, we plan to open that. And we've been told that some of the residents are very excited that we're going to be there, so I hope that turns out to be a good venture. This past year in our transportation, we provided 25,884 units of service. We served all areas of Leavenworth County from border to border. We have 9 vehicles that are in the transportation program. In 2016, we were providing general public transportation to all age groups. In 2017, we changed and decided we would like to focus strictly on seniors and the disabled. This change has resulted in an increase in the number of trips that we provide, which is rather kind of shocking to us. But this past year, we provided over 25,000 units of transportation service. As we're becoming an aging population with 10,000 people turning 65 each day, the need for senior transportation and services continues to increase. One of the areas, and we're continually looking at to seeing what can we do to make the life of our seniors easier for them. And one of the things that was coming up was transportation tends to drop you off at the door. So if you got dropped off at the door at the University of Kansas Medical Center, that's rather kind of daunting for someone. We now have an attendant that will go with you, take you to the specific department that you're going to, and will go in if you request it and write notes so that you will have notes that you can read to kind of refresh your memory when you get home. We also have a Social Security attendant that will go to the Social Security office with you and take notes if you would like for them to take notes, or they will just sit in the lobby, whatever the senior's choice is. Other programs that we have with our agency is information and assistance, and that provided in last year 7,495 units of service. This position answers any questions that you might have about aging or your particular situation with Medicare, Medicaid. And if we don't have the answer, we'll direct you to an agency that will get the answer for you. We have a chore and errand program, and that consists of shopping, lawn maintenance, and small home repairs. And some things are little tasks like putting in a light bulb. For many seniors, that's not possible for them to get up and put in a light bulb. Our chore program has been very, very valuable to our seniors. From that, we branched off to a program that we call To the Curb. And that is a program that, say you've had surgery, you had your knee replaced or your hip replaced, or you just physically can't do that, we will come and take your trash to the curb. You have to have it bagged up, ready to go by the door. Our staff member comes and picks up the trash and takes it to the curb on your trash pickup day. We have a telephone and visitation program that contacts seniors at their request, and if sometimes they're not feeling well and they want the comfort of knowing somebody's going to call them to make sure they've gotten up in the morning. Last year, that staff member did almost 1,500 units of service. In 2017, in 2007, we had observed several of our Meals on Wheels individuals feeding their food to their pets because they could not afford pet food. So we decided that we were going to start a program where we would get donated food, to pet food for them to give. And we partnered with Science Diet out of Topeka, and they were fabulous in their support of this program. Currently, we have 48 dogs and 53 cats that receive pet food. And this is totally funded by donation. People give us monetary donation, pet food donations, but it is very well received by the people, and they're very, very thankful. And this actually then helped their nutrition because they were able to eat their Meals on Wheels lunches. Other services that we provide a VitaTax service, which we have 2 counselors for that, and then we have several volunteers. We are going throughout the county. We will have 1 or 2 days in each of the cities where people have appointments to get their taxes prepared. We have a monthly legal aid service through Legal Aid in Kansas City. Support groups that we have currently we have an Alzheimer's support, a grief support, a caregiver support, diabetic support, and grandparent support. We recently started a caregiver support in the southern portion of the county, and they're meeting at the Ryford Center in Tonganoxie. Each month, we serve every city within Leavenworth County on an outreach. They're there one morning, and that individuals can come in and visit with our staff and discuss any problems that they might have or any services that they might need. Our agency consists of 18 full-time employees, 9 part-time, and 30 on-call. We have 75 volunteers that deliver Meals on Wheels and 6 volunteers that assist with our leisure and learning program. All of our volunteers have KBI checks to assure their suitability to be around our frail seniors. Our funding comes from federal and state grants, mill levy funding, local grants, and business and individual donations. We have 2 large fundraisers each year to support our Meals on Wheels and our transportation program, and this past year we raised $18,380. We take great pride in our dedication and service to the seniors of Leavenworth County and have been told we have one of the most extensive programs for seniors in the state of Kansas. Our mission is to identify those seniors and that are low income or in declining health and provide service for them to enable them to live a quality time that they might have in their home. We strive each day to meet this mission. Over the years, the Council on Aging and the seniors of Leavenworth County have been very fortunate and blessed to have very supportive Board of County Commissioners. And for this, we are very, very thankful. They have always been very graciously supported the Council on Aging. I believe that the county commissioners should be very proud of the men and women who are Council on Aging employees, and through their compassion and hard work, try to meet the needs of many of the seniors of Leavenworth County. Do you have any questions?
Commissioner, you have any questions?
I know you got a big network of volunteers, Linda. Do you know about how many volunteers total?
We have 75 Meals on Wheels and 6 leisure and learning. And the leisure and learning program is where that's the social and educational programs that we have.
So
Right now, we are struggling with our Meals on Wheels program because the numbers have increased so much that our routes had to increase. And many of our volunteers, they're not young. And so it has put a burden on them. We are right now trying to develop another route to relieve some of that. But it's meant that we're having to pull people more from our office to break into their day in the morning and deliver meals. So we're trying. We have to be very careful, though, of who we have volunteer.
Right. But so you rely on almost 100 volunteers total?
Well, we have
80-some.
80
80 some, yeah.
And there's some other volunteers that teach classes that I didn't include in that in our leisure and learning. But
yeah. And you advertise your services too in the paper. I think it takes up a whole page usually.
Well, we have the Senior Chronicle that is once a month. The Leavenworth Times graciously provides that to us free, and so we do have that in there.
Okay.
And the fundraiser this year is going to be held where?
At the Church of the Open Door on 20th Street.
Really? That might be able to handle your crowd.
Yeah, we won't have to turn people away. That's been kind of frustrating to people.
Okay, that's a good location.
And we visited there, and they have a very nice gymnasium-type room, and the parking is very flat, and there's a lot of it, so that should be a good thing.
Yeah, that's a good location.
And they graciously are giving to it for free, and in the past, we've had to pay. So.
That's the Henry Last wing that they just built. That's my great-grandfather.
Yeah, that's what I said. You got some ties to that, so you better be there.
I better.
And when did you say you'd be in Linwood? As soon as they get done?
We're kind of hoping April is kind of our...
They're working on the building right now?
That's my understanding.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
For those of you running in 5th District, this board gave the city of Linwood $90,000 to upgrade their community building, and Linda's going to provide a service down there. So you guys can take credit for that too when you're running. But
I got one
I
question.
have no other questions.
Just
like
whenever possible, do you encourage the seniors, that are receiving the Meals on Wheels delivery, to try to get out to the sites where they can have more engagement with the with peers or with other people? Just to kind of.
We do an assessment when somebody requests meals. If you leave your home, other than to go to church or to get your hair done, you do not qualify for Meals on Wheels. That's a federal mandate. So, but we try to get people, it's really nice to get that meal at home, but when they're at the point that they can be going out and, like you say, be in society, we encourage them to go to meal sites.
Good.
And really, one of my goals in the future is I hope that in other parts of the county, we'll be able to have transportation to the meal sites. Right now, we don't have the staff to do that.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Linda, I may have missed it. Do you have a date for your fundraiser?
We do, but David, I don't recall it right now, but it's in the spring. It's in the spring.
Well, as soon as you get it, why don't you send it up here and we'll get it out.
We'll put the word out. We'll announce it every meeting.
Okay.
We'll prove you wrong that the Church of Normal will not be big enough.
And I have to say, all the things at our fundraisers are all donated.
Mm-hmm.
Our PALS program is totally 100% donated. At Christmas and at Valentine's Day, people adopt people like you wouldn't believe. Just at Christmas alone, we offered little punch cards, and you could buy a punch card, and you could give somebody so many transportation rides, or so many meals, or so many to the curb trash put out. And we had almost $4,000 donated by people. So, and we have people that donate out of Leavenworth County to us. They've had some connection. Their family lived here at one time, and they donate to us. So we have been very, very fortunate. We try to be very good stewards of the donations.
Well, I appreciate everything you do. We get nothing but good things said about Counseling on Aging, and I think you and your staff work very hard to get that. So it doesn't just happen.
That's right.
So.
Yep, it's amazing how much you get done with so little.
Yeah.
Well, we're very fortunate, and Mark has been very supportive. We're probably one of the biggest departments that uses the on-call staff. And, you know, it's like the delivery of the meals. That has to be done between 10 and 12. And so, you know, you have to pull people for that. And he has been very good about, at even our transportation or anything, of letting us utilize the on-call.
That's great.
And so that has been a real blessing to us.
Good.
And Mark's been very good to us, too, so, and David.
Well, we all know we're going to need your services someday.
I think I heard her say that I'm now eligible.
You are eligible now, Mr.
I think I'm
Walford.
right now the only commissioner who is too.
Yeah. Thank you, Lyndon. Thanks for everything you do. Mr. Weber is last but not least.
Last in line.
We all know what Bob does. He raises everybody's taxes.
Morning, I'm Bob Weber, County Appraiser. County Appraiser's office is a little unique. County Appraiser is appointed by the Board of County Commission to 4-year terms. And we answer to the Board of County Commissioners, and we also act under the general direction of the Director of Property Valuation Division of the Department of Revenue. So there are a number of directives that we have to follow, state laws. Everything we do is generally to meet state laws. You look up Chapter 79 in the Kansas statutes, it's full of property tax laws. Property taxes is done the same across the state of Kansas. We don't make up our rules here in Leavenworth County versus another county doing it a different way, for the most part. The director does that. A couple ways he does supervise us is we have an audit, an in-depth audit we have to do every year. They check all our processes, make sure we're meeting all our statutory requirements. We have to submit all our analysis, and they have to look at it and see that we did it and that we applied it. They also they measure our results too. So our values are measured against what properties are selling for. So we value as of January 1 each year. The director, BVD, takes all the sales that happened from January 1st through December 31st, and they compare that back to our value to see if we're achieving market value. There's certain ranges we have to fall in, statistical ranges we have to for both appraisal level and appraisal uniformity. Key role of the county appraiser's office is to provide a fair property tax base for spreading the cost of local services. City, county, school districts all use those values for taxes. To appraise property accurately and uniformly, to classify property, different properties assessed at different rates. Commercial properties assessed at 25%. Residential properties assessed at 11.5%. Those rates are spelled out in the Kansas Constitution. We're to assure all property that is taxable is on the tax rolls, and all property that is exempt, we have an exempt. But in Kansas, taxation is the rule and exemption is the exception. So all property is taxable unless specifically exempted, and all doubts are to be ruled in favor of taxation. We are required to list and value all real personal property as of January 1st of each year. We're also required to value all taxable personal property as of January 1st each year. The difference between real estate and personal property, the county appraiser is required to discover and list all real property. Personal property is self-reported by the taxpayers. And so they are required to report taxable personal property by March 15th. If it's reported late, we are required to assign late filing penalties to those. Goes up 5% per month, up to a maximum 25%. If it goes a year, failure file is 50% penalty. We cannot remove that. The Board of County Commissioners cannot remove those penalties. They could, only the Board of Tax Appeals in the state of Kansas has authority to remove those penalties. We value all real estate. Land is valued by the Property Valuation Division Director by law. It's a statewide system. It's not market value. It's a use value, a modified income approach to value, and it is much below market value. When it comes to agricultural land, our duties are to classify it. So we classify it whether it's ag or not ag, and then we classify as to whether it's crop ground, grass, waste, that sort of thing. That's where when we go to the Board of Tax Appeals to defend the values, it's PVD that defends the value. We go up and just say we have it classified as X and why we have it classified that way. Back to personal property, some examples of personal property that we would have on tax rolls are mobile homes, heavy trucks, commercial machinery and equipment purchased prior to July 1st, 2006. Other trailers, ATVs, watercraft, airplanes, hot air balloons, golf carts, campers, all those kinds of things are required to be taxed. And again, some of those things like airplanes, there's multiple ways they can be exempted, but they have to apply for exempted. There's statutes that exempt airplanes used for certain purposes, and anything used for farm machinery equipment is also exempt. So an ATV could be taxable if it's used for personal pleasure, but if it's used for farm purposes, it's not taxable. So we have I see Jeff smiling. We have a process where they come in, provide us with they have to at least own some agricultural ground before we'll exempt them for that purposes, and they have they apply to us and they show us a picture and that they own some farm ground and before we'll exempt it. But as we go through our tax year, what we do is we value January 1st each year all real estate. So that's what we're finishing up right now. We mail our change of value notices on or before March 1st. And taxpayers have 30 days to file an appeal on that value. Then we will, if they file appeal, we have up until like May 5th to hold that hearing. We have to have all our decisions made on those hearings by the 15th of May, and we have to certify all our real estate values to the county clerk by June 1st so that clerk in turn can give those values out to the individual taxing districts so when they set their budgets. And then if people are unsatisfied with what we decide on the hearing, there's a couple different options. For residential, it all has to go to what's called the Small Claims Division of the State Board of Tax Appeals. And for commercial property, it can go, and if they don't like those answers, then they can go to the full Board of Tax Appeals. Not too much residential makes it to the full Board of Tax Appeals. Commercial can go directly to the Board of Tax Appeals. That's the first chance. You can also appeal by filing a payment on protest when you pay your first half or second half of taxes. Even if they're delinquent, even if it's 6 years down the road, you can pay those properties, and we have to go through this process. We would like that to be limited because it's difficult 6 years down the road to prove what the condition of that property was in at that point in time. But those are our requirements. But you cannot appeal both times. You can appeal one or the other, but you can't appeal a property multiple times in a given tax year. Leavenworth County, we have 72% of our assessed value is residential property. So that is what pays most of the taxes in Leavenworth County. We are only 14% of our property is commercial of assessed value. 8% is public utility. Now, public utilities, I didn't touch on, those are also valued by the Director of Property Valuation Division. In fact, I don't even see those values. Those are certified directly to the county clerk from the Director of PVD. So, but there's a whole different set of laws that deal with public utilities and how they deal with them, and they have their own assessment rate at 33%. But that's not by choice. If you look at a county real similar to us, Riley County, you'll see similar numbers, although they have some more commercial value. But if you look at the value per capita, and I can give you these numbers here, we are $8,389 per resident. That's using the 2010 population of 76,227. That is one of the lowest you'll find in the state. And that goes along, part of that is a little bit because Fort Leavenworth, that population includes Fort Leavenworth. We don't have any assessed value, well, very little assessed value on Fort Leavenworth. So
the biggest problem.
That's what skews those numbers a little bit. But you have any other questions or?
Your contract tied to the state is every 6 years, right? For county appraisers across the state.
4 years.
Is it 4? Okay.
4 years.
We just did it last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if it was 4 or 6.
Yeah. All county are on the same cycle, 4 years.
Okay.
Cycle.
And it used to be personal property and some real estate was so you could certify to the clerk. You based everything on the way it was on January 1. So if somebody, for instance, owned a boat, they bought it January 5th and sold it December 30th, they wouldn't pay taxes on that boat. But whoever bought it December 30th and owned it January 2nd did pay for the whole year. And then also, I think, didn't they change the laws on prorating the valuation on if a house burnt, it's not based on what's their January 1 anymore? Didn't they recently change some of those?
So most property is as of January 1st. It's appraised and taxable. There are some exceptions. Watercraft has been one of those a few years ago. We have to prorate now. We prorate on and on off. So even if they buy it March 1st and sell it December 30th, we have to prorate it for that time. So they will be on the tax rolls. Which leads to some conflict because they're supposed to tell us they sold it by a certain date, by the date December 20th. The motor vehicles are prorated also. The heavy trucks that we have on, they're also prorated. When it comes to real estate, it is not necessarily the county commission on resident homestead property has the ability to abate all or part of the taxes due to a disaster. And so what we've been doing on those is, so if a house burns, and we just had one burn completely just a few days last week or so, we will send them out an application, they will apply, and then I'll bring it before the Board of County Commissioners. And what we typically do is prorate that value off at the day of disaster. So they'll pay up to that just for the, they'll pay for the land, they'll pay for any other outbuildings, but the house itself will be prorated. Prior to that law passing, it was old bad luck. It burns January 2nd. And it's still the way for other than homestead. So if a commercial property burns January 2nd, we have no authority to take it off the tax roll. So.
It has to be at least 50% on the homestead, correct? 50%
Oh, yeah,
damage.
right,
It has to be
50%.
at least 50%
Yeah.
destroyed. Yeah.
Destroyed, yeah. It can't be just a,
A small
Right.
fire, yeah. Okay. And on, with the new legislation, you know, a lot of new people, do you see any changes in how property taxes are figured? I mean, you know, there's been a lot of talk. Some say, hey, we got to get some relief to seniors and maybe freeze.
well, I was just at a legislative reception last night. I did speak to Senator Tom Holland there. He said he was introducing a bill, homestead bill, but it wasn't going to affect county revenues, that it would give some relief to seniors, more relief to seniors on property taxes, but it was going to use money from sales taxes, excess collected in sales taxes. You know, other than that, most of it's been, you know, there hasn't been too much. The problem, you have to do it on, you can't do it on the appraisal end, you have to do it on the tax end. The appraisal end, if you treat one individual different than another individual, you know, then, you know, the Constitution won't allow that. So, but they can do it on the tax end. They can offer rebates or that sort of thing to the different. And there is a homestead that's in place. It's income. You know, the county clerk's office does administer that.
Right. Now, when a bank repossesses a house and turns around and sells it at a reduced rate to get it back, you know, is that considered a comparable sale?
We are not using those as a comparable properties right now. When the market, you know, 2010, I think 25% of our residential sales were just that.
Repos, yeah.
And we did use them at that point in time. They're a very small part of our, because the values are increasing now, they're a very small part, and we're not using them because they are at a much lower level than what the majority of sales are. In the state of Kansas, you know, when I said that sales ratio study, they do not use those also to judge, you know, what is market value. And there is a definition of market value that does say exclude properties that are sold under duress. So there is some of that. But we felt we had to, you know, when you know, there were 25% of our sales base, we felt we had to consider that as it affected the whole market. So.
Okay. Any more questions, Mr. Weber?
Nope.
All right. Thank you, Bob.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Did commissioners all get this letter of appreciation for Mr. Van Perez and Mr. Tom?
Yes, it was very
Todd
nice.
Thompson? It was a very nice letter. You guys really went on beyond what your duties are to take care of them people. And is anyone going to the soil conservation dinner on Saturday night, the 2nd? Is it too late? I won't be able to make that.
I didn't know about it.
Well, we got a late notice. And I believe our RSVPs came and went, but I'm sure they might let us in.
Yeah, I'm still thinking if I
Okay,
can make it
so
or
you
not.
got that?
I got
Alright.
it. We just got it yesterday, I think. Yeah.
Okay, and I'll attend the LCDC meeting tomorrow, but everyone's welcome to attend it because it's on the agenda. So I'll be there. So I don't know if anyone else is coming or not.
I'll probably be there then.
Okay, like I said, as long as it's on the agenda, we can all be there.
Okay.
I'll attend the Lansing.
You'll do Lansing
Yeah,
on Friday, the
yes,
power lunch?
The power lunch on
Okay.
Friday. Yep.
All right, and everything's covered then?
Yep, and then Monday night I got the Easton City Council.
Yeah, Tongi City Council's Monday night.
Lansing is,
Linwood's Tuesday night. Baser's Wednesday night.
Lansing is Thursday.
So, all right.
We got
We're
it
good.
covered.
Got 'em covered.
We got it all covered. Is there anything else this board needs?
Not from staff.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Voting,
Aye.